Phase 4 of the MCU is overhated and more consistent than people admit. If people judged the MCU back in Phase 1 like they do now, it would have been DOA after Iron Man 2. My beef with Phase 4 is where's the follow-up? In fact, it's happening until now. Where's Shang-Chi 2? Where are the projects with the introduced young Avengers Kate Bishop and Wiccan? Where's the Eternals? Where's the Black Knight? We're in Phase 6 and nothing of any of that. And those are the ones I remembered. I'm sure there is a lot more not followed up on yet. I think my biggest issue with the entire saga was that we got, no sequels. Too many great new characters and no follow-up. Moon Knight, Kate Bishop, Shang-Chi, Carol. I don't feel like I know anyone well enough to be invested in them by the time this Avengers film rolls around. I think there's been some course correction, but I'm wondering if it's too late in the game. I agree it was hit or miss, but no more so than Phases 1 and 2. The reasons everyone's so weird about it are: Phase 3 is the best Marvel phase, and it lasted 4 years. 6 if you consider it ending when WandaVision came out. There are MCU fans who experienced their whole childhood while the MCU was basically firing on all cylinders. For them, going back to Phase 2 quality was a splash of cold water to the face. You actually had to watch the shows, some of which were mediocre. People will have the same revisionism about Phase 4 or 5 that they're now having about Iron Man 2, 3, Age of Ultron, Homecoming, etc. They complain about how useless and immemorable villains are when Infinity Saga had maybe 4 to 5 of good villains out of 20. The only project that truly sucked and is below even Dark World, still the worst MCU movie to date, is Secret Invasion. Premise was great. Execution not so much. Edit. Typos. What do you mean when you say Infinity Saga expectations? If it's about quality expectations, then negative feedback is completely justified. Most of the Phase 4 movie scripts are all over the place. The problem isn't the quality, it's the lack of characters to act as through lines to keep audiences invested. Shang-Chi still hasn't even gotten his second appearance yet. They needed at least one main character to have multiple major appearances within the one phase. The only recurring character ended up being Wong, which might have worked if they were planning a Wong movie, but obviously they weren't. Several characters got a main appearance and one cameo appearance: Wanda, Sam Wilson, Bucky, Dr. I genuinely like having more side stories that are only mildly connected than having a set of them that are all in line building to one goal. It's why I was such a big fan of the Marvel television shows back in the early phases before we got Disney+, because you could have a lot of extra, world-building stories that didn't have to be a part of the bigger picture. I like to call it Phase Wong. Agreed completely. That being said, I think they would have done better to have things come out in a more consistent manner. Have Phase 4 be all projects dealing with Endgame fallout, finishing up in an Avengers movie where a newly formed Avengers team fights Wanda. There were not enough ties. Everything felt so scatterbrained. Phase 4 reminds me of Phase 2, some brilliant things and some things that were a bit of a mess but still fun. Marvel Studios has not made a truly bad movie. They've made some brilliant ones, and some that weren't as good as hoped, but none are bad, and they've only made one movie that lost money, and that had more to do with a terrible strike-addled launch than the quality of the film itself, which was fun. I think the MCU starting in Phase 4 chose to, instead of telling one overarching story, tell many stories across the universe, with some cameos. Personally, I really enjoy that, as it gives them the ability to tell really interesting stories. I can't imagine Wonder Man in the early MCU, and it was one of my favorite shows. But I can see why others don't like this, and would prefer everything to work up to some sort of finale. I am rewatching with my son currently, his first time, and Phases 1 to 3 went by so quickly. We are in Phase 4, and it's taking a while because of the TV shows. Plus, there are so many more stories in 4 and 5 that I think that's what most people complain about. I know some people that just watch movies and can't be tied down watching series. Pretty much every Phase 5 project builds on something introduced in Phase 4, so there is a clear distinction. But it's fair enough to say it all feels more disjointed. Failed to me because it was kind of incoherent. The stakes and tone were different for almost every project, and each one ended with a stinger promising something that was never going to be mentioned again. The big bad of the era was Julia Louis-Dreyfus. There is a super Skrull that is just not part of the story. There were good things in that time frame, but lots of slop too. Just felt like the quality control was lax. The loss of structure that the more focused Infinity Gauntlet arc provided has been the biggest problem. I don't even know what phase we're in anymore because of how unfocused and messy the multiverse arc has been. That doesn't mean Marvel haven't dropped some bangers like Shang-Chi, Loki, Thunderbolts, and Agatha all along. Mom said it was my turn to post this.
Quality.
Eternals was a failure. Black Widow was too little too late. I think what really sank Phase 4 was Strange MOM. Thor Love and Thunder and BPWF actually did major damage. Mom turned Steven into a supporting character in his own movie and had Wanda go evil. This damaged one of their most successful newer characters and took the other off the board. But at least box office went up. Love and Thunder made Thor into a joke. Wasted good source material from the comics. Box office dropped.
B.
People underestimate how much they can be manipulated. People who thrive off of clicks for money or clout exploit this. Then, if a person has a bad understanding and it gets reinforced, they refuse to accept they got it wrong in spite of all evidence. And, to my surprise, many people seem to not grasp the themes in films and how they relate to themselves and society, which is a big thing in level of enjoyment and comprehension. Giving up safety for security, government oversight, and overreach. Each individual piece isn't bad in its own, but in terms of universe building for the saga, everything just felt like a side quest. Loki is the best thing to come out of the MCU. It's mostly expectations after Endgame. People wanted another big build-up right away. Stuff like Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and Loki were actually solid, just not huge crossover hype, so they get overlooked. No, it sucks. Maybe, but that doesn't mean I care. I think the issue is that they should have made less projects and set up less things. I think Thunderbolts could have been a Phase 4 movie, and even if we didn't get Avengers movies, we could have seen some movies with Sam's team in it.